Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome back. Let me dive right in here. Much to discuss, much to read, much to get to. First of all, this is kind of a cool announcement. Back in the day, certainly during all of the free speech wars that were existing, again around 2014, 2015, 2016, of course, during the Obama administration, and then, of course, Trump coming into office, the bad guys were clamping down hard on the First Amendment. And the one place that you could go to get the truth and to have dialogue and inquiry and the whole thing and go down as many endless rabbit holes as you wanted to was this video streaming platform BitChute. BitChute, back in the day, again, either based out of the UK or based out of Canada or wherever they're based out of. Again, I don't know the exact location, but I do know that I believe it's a British man who runs the operation. They never had any kind of an application that you could download from an app store. Again, this was before Rumble. So basically, you had YouTube, which again, even back then, had a lot of truth videos and a lot of rabbit holes you could go down, and endless educational platforms and a number of other things. Again, lectures, videos, you name it. But then a massive purge occurred with YouTube, and endless channels that were telling the truth about a great many subjects were immediately deleted without warning. They were just gone. Again, much like my Stormbooks, much like endless other platforms and endless other shows and a number of other things. But this, of course, predates all of that. But back then, again, BitChute was the only place that you could go. People tried to attack BitChute. They tried to shut it down. There were hacking attacks, a number of things, but BitChute remained. And it again became a bastion of free speech, which was absolutely fantastic. On top of that, and this is kind of the unfortunate part, is that all of these platforms and all of these major shows that exist, they have BitChute pages, they have BitChute channels, but they don't tell you that. You know, the Steven Crowders of the world, the Alex Joneses of the world, all of these other, again, platforms, they never mention BitChute all of the time, even though they've been on BitChute this entire time. And they've, again, Tim Pool, for example, Daily Wire, you know, the whole Con Inc. grift and everybody else, but also, again, real journalists and real investigators and real individuals, just your average citizens going down endless rabbit holes and creating their own content on BitChute. And yet, BitChute is one of those platforms that's never really widely promoted, not even mentioned by the people who use it. Well, that's changed a little bit. Again, like I said earlier, they never used to have an iPhone app or any kind of an app that you could download on an Apple TV, a tablet, a phone, you name it. But now they do. So for Apple iPhones, if you have one, you can download the BitChute app from the App Store. I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend telling people you know about BitChute if you haven't already. And you share the fact that, again, if they have an Apple iPhone, then they can download the BitChute app. It's a major, major win in the entire, again, free speech landscape and the fight for free speech, because, again, Apple would not allow it back in the day. Again, now you hear a lot, of course, about YouTube, even though they, filled themselves with all of the free speech purges that they possibly could regarding endless platforms, certainly individuals bringing up Q posts and a number of other things back in the day, but they never again mentioned BitChute, and yet BitChute has, like I said, remained and really stood strong as a free speech platform. So, again, make sure that you download that on your iPhone if you don't already. Certainly if you use your iPhone for video streaming or you're interested in looking up videos. Not to mention, and this is kind of cool, is that BitChute changed its interface on its actual website. Say, for example, if you're watching BitChute or looking at BitChute on a computer, so that you can actually watch a video and then download the video to your computer immediately. You don't need a secondary website to download the video. You don't have to plug in the web address to a secondary website to download the video. There's just a download button on the video itself. And you can just press that download button. I think it's like an arrow down with like a little line underneath it or something like that, but it's embedded on the right-hand side of the actual video. And again, you can download it straight to your computer, which is great. Rumble doesn't have that. X doesn't have that. YouTube doesn't have that. They don't let you download videos directly to another platform or, again, a desktop computer or anything like that for the ease of sharing those videos with people, but BitChute does. which again is a great addition to their overall platform. So I've always admired BitChute. They've been there through thick and thin, and they still are there, and they still remain, and they're going even stronger, which is fantastic. So again, just wanted to mention that right out of the gate. Unfortunately, however, there was also a very fantastic website that popped up many years back, and it was called 12-Foot Ladder. I even used to mention it on the show here previously, and it's been under attack for a very long time, and now 12-Foot Ladder is apparently officially offline. 12-Foot Ladder was a website that allowed people to bypass paywalls on just about any platform and so-called journalistic or media platform that had paywalls behind it. Even like the Epoch Times, where of course they want you to pop in your email address and then you're flooded with emails all of the time, and then once you unsubscribe, then of course you need to get back through a paywall or at least re-upload your email. Either way, 12-Foot Ladder no longer exists, which is too bad. I haven't used it in quite some time because, of course, I started to notice that it wasn't working all of the time, and certainly not on some of these other websites. Again, I'm not interested in reading anything from the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. But again, if a person wanted to highlight the insanity that exists, for example, at the New York Times or any of these other publications, they could certainly do that without having to pay, which was kind of cool. So again, it was a hacking website basically, but all you had to do was just upload the web address into 12-Foot Ladder, hit enter, and then your entire article that you're trying to look at or expose, so to speak, became available. So anyway, that no longer exists. But again, the simple fact that BitChute does exist and does exist in app form and is not censored is a huge, huge win. And that cannot be overstated. I mean, it's massive. And it shows a real shift in the culture regarding all of that. So I just wanted to make mention of that off the top, and yeah, there we go. Okay. The Epstein stuff. I didn't speak about it last week, at least I don't believe I did, and I purposefully didn't on purpose. It's not because I've been wrong about anything, it's actually quite the opposite. I knew exactly what was going to happen with all of this. The simple fact that you bring the Epstein topic back into the, spotlight, so to speak, of American society, you're going to get all of the reaction that you always get, typically from the left, and then, of course, you get it from the so-called individuals on the right. And everybody just starts yelling about it again. We need to see this, we need to see that, people need to be arrested. And all of those, again, same stories just continuously come out, which, again, is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that it re-enters the so-called zeitgeist of what people are paying attention to, that Overton window alone is being moved, but not by bad people, nor in a bad direction. I would almost consider it at this point to be a positive psychological operation because it's being used and being brought into the mainstream again, and time again, as a narrative shift on purpose. To again draw more people out of the woodwork on both sides who are either guilty or have absolutely no idea what's actually happening. And it's the individuals on the far right who really have no idea what is actually happening. And the so-called, again, Con Inc. group, like the Benny Johnsons of the world and the Laura Loomers of the world, and then even further right than that, like Stu Peters and whatever else. All they do is they just start yelling and screaming that nothing is happening, that no one is being arrested. But getting people again to scream and yell that, again, matters because the people on the left start to clamor for the exact same thing over and over and over again. And they expose themselves again constantly. Okay, now I'm remembering. I played that clip of Jamie Raskin last week. Again, basically saying, we need to see all these files and this needs to happen. Yep, now you've got the left begging for it when they of course never were going to. And then of course all of the truth posts from Donald Trump calling it a hoax and saying it was a Democrat hoax. I understand the perspective on it, and I'm not trying to bend it a particular way or justify knowledge about one thing or another any particular way. I'm simply saying that This is a playbook that has been repeated time and time and time again. It goes away, and then it comes back intentionally. Again, all of the truth posts from Donald Trump calling it a hoax and saying it was a Democrat hoax, and saying that Obama, Comey, Biden, and the rest of them, that they all scripted the entire Epstein thing, and they were involved, and them trying to tie it to Donald Trump and so on and so forth, and all of this stuff. All that it accomplishes, and it's not really all it accomplishes, it really accomplishes many things, but one of the things, of course, is that it just pulls it out of the shadows. It pulls it out of the closet right into the limelight, and everybody can see it for exactly what it is, and it's massive. Again, it associates all of their names with other very bad people who did very bad stuff, and we know what that was. But again, it also shows, like I said earlier, it really exposes a great deal of people for not knowing what we've known for at least since 2017. Now I have to get into this, and it ties again directly into the Russia hoax and the declassification and the recent declassification of the treason and the sedition, and all of the individuals, including politicians, the media, etc., certainly business was probably behind it as well, regarding treason and sedition and the coup of the President of the United States, both before he was elected and then after he was elected the first time. Now, I have to bring this up, and I want to get in a time machine real quick, because this is a big deal, and this matters. First of all, when we wrapped up the conversation with Jesse James and Outcast in the last episode, we were talking about them potentially having me back on their show to discuss Q drops and sort of my history with it, because again, endless people across the entire world had a history with it and were paying attention to it at the time. And Jesse and Outcast are very inquisitive guys. They're very intelligent. And they're asking a bunch of questions, and Outcast basically said, hey, look, I'm curious as to your perspective on this and how it relates to what's going on today, and again, your experience with it back in the past, along with, other people as well. And maybe you can come on the show and go through the timeline of that. And I said, absolutely, I'd be happy to do it. I want to start here, though, because I want to mention some things, again, that clearly pertain to what is going on now and what we knew back then as a result of Q posts. And again, you didn't have to follow it back then to know what's going on now. You can actually go back on the Q boards now, operationq.pub, for example, PUB, and you can get on there and you can type in the search box anybody's name or a keyword that matters, like Russia, for example, or Russia hoax, or anything along those lines, Epstein, for example, and I'll get into that more specifically in a second, but the time machine aspect that I want to fall back on, and it sticks out to me like nobody's business, because what you saw you saw the face of a guilty person who knew that they just got caught, and they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe they got caught. On the night of the election in 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost, and she lost handsomely, and she lost big time, there was a documentary series that was being recorded at the time that would then be published like a day or so or 2 days later or whatever it was. And Mark Halperin, who used to work, I believe, for ABC, if I'm not mistaken, or NBC, one of those two rags, he was a part of this particular documentary series along with this other guy. Point is they were going around the Clinton campaign, and they were making a lot of recordings, and then, of course, they were running cover for the Clintons and making it look like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, she's going to win. She has a 98% chance, 99% chance of winning, and all of that stuff. On the night of the election, when everybody's gathered in that building with, the glass ceiling and all that nonsense, and everybody's crying in that room, when Hillary Clinton was so drunk she wouldn't even show up because, again, she was angry and she was losing and all of that stuff. And then John Podesta, comes out on the stage and stands up at the lectern and says, we're going to count all the votes and we're going to do all this, and everybody just go home, get your rest, and we'll keep counting in the morning and blah, blah, blah. Remember all of that? Outside of that building, Ben Rhodes was one of the individuals who was helping run Hillary Clinton's campaign. and worked for Barack Obama also, if I'm not mistaken. Ben Rhodes looked like he saw a ghost. He was being interviewed by this documentary series, and they were like, hey, so, what do you think happened? Like, what's going on here? He was flat out speechless. In fact, I'm going to play it here. It's only about less than a minute, and he talks for even less than that, and he says nothing. And the reason I want to play this again is because this is exactly how someone sounds when two things have happened at the exact same time. You are engaging in treason and sedition, lying through your teeth, and of course creating a story that was 100% false, with the media behind you and everything behind you, not taking into account the American people and what we think, telling everybody that Hillary Clinton again had a 98, 99% chance of winning, when of course she didn't. All of that was a media lie. And then the American people spoke and you got caught. And the moment that happens, he sounds like a criminal. He sounds like someone, again, who has been caught in a courtroom, dead to rights. Give him a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I just came outside to try to process all this. It's a lot to process. I mean, I can't even. I can't. I mean, I can't. I can't put it into words. I don't know what the words are.
I didn't edit any of that. I didn't edit a single piece of that. All of those long pauses were legit. He's just sitting there looking like a deer in headlights, but he's looking dejected. And again, he's looking like he got caught. And then, as we all know, the plan ramped up. Donald Trump won, entered office, and then they said, we're going to run with a Russia hoax right to the very end. Ben Rhodes, of course, along with others, took to the mainstream media. They did everything that they do. They ran with the entire lie. And Ben Rhodes was one of the, what I would call, lower individuals in the rung. I mean, he didn't play a huge role in perpetuating the Russia hoax, but he was a part of it. He was in on it. It was the heads of these agencies that were the biggest problem. John Brennan, of course, James Clapper, and then their second in charge, you had Sally Yates, of course, you had Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton was involved. I mean, it was all of these people, Bruce and Nellie Orr, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, congressmen and women, the Gang of Eight, quote unquote, and that entire group to some extent. Again, a lot of people on the right stayed quiet, but there were some people on the right, certainly politicians, who were asking questions. Well, if there's Russia connections, then we need to look into it. The entire thing was fake. Fusion GPS, of course, they were involved. Christopher Steele was involved. The firm that hired him, Perkins Coie, they were involved. Clinton Foundation was involved. The DNC was involved. And the media was involved. This is a lot of people who all got caught in all of this. And you may also remember, again, the very famous line from Donald Trump when he's outside of the White House about to get on the helicopter. And he looks at the media standing there and he goes, I caught them all. Yep. Because he saw all of this documentation that we've just seen, because this is the declass. This just happened. This is the biggest declass of information showing a coup against a sitting president. Manufacturing, the story before he was elected, and then once he was elected, they kicked it into overdrive. And they just got caught. Now, I'm recording this on Sunday. I turned on the Sunday morning shows just briefly to see who would bring this up. Just the first ones out of the gate. The first one was ABC This Week with George Snuffleupagus, and he wasn't there. but Martha Radich was, and she's, of course, horrible. They made no mention, zero, of the Russia hoax, coup / treason / sedition. Didn't bring it up one time. It was Epstein. We're going to go to the Mexican border and see how things are going, and then we're going to talk to Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. That was their show. That was it. And then I switched over to Fox News. Fox News only brought it up at the beginning of Fox News Sunday in a list of headlines and other headlines that they were mentioning. And they used the word alleged. Tulsi Gabbard releases this documentation that alleges that Barack Obama was involved in a conspiracy to commit treason and sedition against a sitting president. And then on to the next headline. You don't skip over that headline with that kind of a casual nature. You just don't do that. And this is where the Q posts come into play. And this is where, again, you can separate the wheat from the chaff. And this is where the bullet hits the bone. Individuals who bash the Q posts didn't read them when they came out in real time. We've known about Epstein since 2017. 2017. The first Q post about Epstein was post 113 on November 11th of 2017. It just said Epstein Island. It was in a larger post, but that was just one sentence, Epstein Island. No one had heard of him before then, by and large. He wasn't talked about, he wasn't mentioned, he certainly wasn't in the mainstream. And he wasn't on, I don't think he was on YouTube all that much, or videos about him were on YouTube, but after that Q post, you'd better believe it. And we've known about him since then. Epstein himself and the number of posts that exist regarding Epstein on the Q boards are 69. There are 69 Q posts regarding Epstein with his name in the posts, dating back again to 2017. This is not new to us. This is why you'll never hear Stu Peters bring any of this up, because this is called evidence. And isn't that funny coming from a bounty hunter, a former bounty hunter? See, you can't ignore evidence. Now, on top of that, there are 227 Q posts with the name Russia in it. If you type in Russia in the search bar of the Q drops, on, again, operationq.pub or any of the other Q pages, there are, again, 227 Q posts that pop up with Russia in it. My recommendation is that a person get on those websites and go down those lists, typing in those keywords, and just relearn and reread. And you'll see the evidence being shown to us in real time back then about what we are now seeing now. Let me give you a couple other search terms. If you type in the term declass, just that word in the search box on the Q boards, there are 32 posts that pop up with the word declass in it. And if you type in the word knowingly, which is the hook in all of this, that they knowingly did this. This was not accidental. They weren't just blindly believing somebody when it came to the whole Russia hoax and they interfered in the election and he's an illegitimate president and that's the only reason he won, because Russia was influencing the election. They had zero proof because the whole thing was manufactured. We're just going to blame Russia was the entire story. If you type in, again, declass, you get 32 Q posts. If you type in the word knowingly, you get 42 Q posts. You cannot take in evidence and be objective about a subject without reading evidence. And that's a perfect example of evidence. Let me read you a couple of these posts as well, because they're interesting, and they're still interesting to this day. And I should mention this too, just sort of to preface this, is that we were told back then even to watch Sean Hannity from time to time. There were certain Q posts or anonymous posts that were made by other anonymous individuals that Q would just repost and basically say, hey, when it comes to this particular subject, make sure and tune into Hannity. There's a lot of people saying that Hannity is involved in this to some extent, on the good side, in a good way, that he's been pardon the pun, but cued in on a few things that are actually happening regarding this entire operation. In fact, I think the proof is in the pudding regarding what happened this past election, back in last November. Again, you heard me bring it up at the time. I was watching Fox News. All the people were sitting there at the table at Fox News, and they're bickering back and forth about who's going to win, and this is really close, and we're not hearing a lot, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Sean Hannity shows up. He walks right into the room. He stands at the desk, and he goes, "My sources tell me that Donald Trump has already won, that this is over. That they have enough votes in North Carolina to win. They have enough votes in Georgia to win. He's already won Ohio. He's won Florida. This is over." And then he walks away. And everybody at the table's like, what? He came out of nowhere and just told us that this whole thing is already over. That's when I stood up out of my chair and I went, it's over. Because it was like he was given an order to cut through all of the bullshit, to tell everybody it's over. Donald Trump's won. No more games. No more. Arizona called for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris in this particular case. That wasn't going to happen again. We were cutting through the speculation, and we're just flat out telling you it's already over. Sean Hannity got that order from somebody regarding this entire operation. Of that, I have no doubt. But let me read you this. Again, this is just an example of sometimes how we were told back then to tune into a particular program at a particular time because something would be mentioned. This was Q Post 3513 on July 26th of 2019. And again, they were just reposting another anonymous individual's post where they said, "Solomon on Hannity Radio. Next week. Change of DNI. Coates gone." That was Dan Coates. He was dirtier than hell. Again, he was probably involved in the Russia hoax also. And then it says, "Declass of docs. Durham News. Said on the show might be on Hannity tonight. Did not say that, but this is big, so watch Hannity." That was 5 years ago and 11 months ago. It was again moments like that where that's what we would do. We would tune into the show and we'd say, okay, this is being brought to the American public. Let's see what's going to be discussed. Here was another one. This is post 4802 on October 1st of 2020. It's a long post, kind of, but it says the following. Spy campaign failed. Russia failed. Weissman, Mueller, in kill brackets, failed. Leaks, failed. Fake news reports, failed. Impeachment, failed. CDC/WHO recommended do not close border, failed. What if C-19 didn't exist? That's COVID-19. What if C-19 didn't exist? Economy today? Question mark. Unemployment today? Question mark. Trade today? China phase 2 held accountable? Question mark in kill brackets. Rally POTUS versus Biden attendance. Biden interviews, non-basement, question mark. Biden questions, non-basement, question mark. Removal of delays regarding Durham. Interviews, testimony, declass. Removal of Biden ammunition debate. 1, 2, and 3, 200,000 dead, down economy, unemployment, debt, ... Removal of mail-in ballot harvesting plus fraud, normal in-person voting. Removal of tech tyranny, censorship, WHO Foundation, anti-WHO equals suspend/terminate. C-19 basis in kill brackets. Removal of ballot attempt regarding California and New York debt solution in kill brackets. It says mathematical probability of C-19 event as solution to above. Perfectly timed window of opportunity, quote unquote, start. Regarding impact November 3rd post-election or pre-election advance. And then the letter D in kill brackets, Democrats. Who benefits the most? Then there's a link to a New York Times article regarding Trump, politics, and CDC and the coronavirus. And then it ends and says, why did White House strip CDC control of COVID-19 data? Bigger than you can imagine. Q. COVID was the lie to cover up for all of the fraud. It was the lie used to distract the entire public about stealing an election in 2020 and the entire Russia hoax. Like it said earlier, the impeachment stuff failed. The Russia hoax failed. No one was buying it. The media was trying to ram it down everybody's throat as much as humanly possible, and no one was buying it. So then they rolled out a fake virus. It was a real poison in the form of shots, 5G, the whole thing, all of that working in tandem with one another. But that was all used, again, as strategies, moves and counter moves in order to steal an election and then justify its stealing in the minds of the brainwashed. And what has all of this shown also regarding all of this declass of all of these individuals engaged in all of this treason and sedition? It's also showed how many brainwashed people exist in our country. The number of people who blindly believe the media regarding the Russia hoax is massive. And look at again what the media is doing now. They're hardly ever covering it at all. Even Fox News was involved in this lie. Remember when Donald Trump, when he came back into the Oval Office after winning this last election, and he had Rupert Murdoch sitting next to Larry Ellison as the two of them were sitting in the Oval Office, and they had red faces and they looked nervous and they didn't know why they were there and all of that other stuff. That was the soft disclosure and the soft exposure, again, to bring these people into the limelight, to show everybody that Rupert Murdoch was involved. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer kind of thing. It was just another reminder that Donald Trump knew that Rupert Murdoch hates him and that Rupert Murdoch was involved in the whole Russia hoax also. And now what is he doing? He's suing him for billions of dollars. Donald Trump is suing Rupert Murdoch for a copious amount of money because he's still behind the lie, only this time regarding Epstein. Now let me mention this. Again, I got a few other posts here regarding all of this, and again, how this entire thing just completely destroyed and collapsed in on itself, this massive Russia lie. First of all, again, just to close out the Epstein stuff, like I said earlier, all it did was expose endless people on both sides as basically, again, exposing their own ignorance on the issue or their own involvement in the issue. That's all that it did. And again, it exposed all of the people who don't read the Q drops and didn't at the time, and all they do is use the derogatory term, trust the plan, there is no plan, and then they just scream at the top of their lungs. Those are just the people who never read them. Here's a particular post, however, from a Hans Manichi, if I'm saying that correctly. Again, it's a well-done post. This is on July 19th of 2025 on X. They said the following, quote, 5 years ago today, a group of random internet users exposed what still stands as the biggest breakthrough in the Russiagate hoax, the identification of Igor Danchenko, the Clinton operative who fabricated a litany of lies about Trump-Russia collusion, and whom the FBI had painstakingly buried deep inside its darkest files to prevent the truth from ever coming out. That truth was as simple as it was devastating. The entire Russiagate hoax had been fabricated from start to finish, every single part of it. It all started with a chance meeting between myself and @Climate Audit in 2018, where we both honed in on one simple idea. If we could somehow figure out who supposedly had access to Putin's innermost secrets, who was the source for most, if not all, of the accusations against Trump, we could blow the whole thing wide open. We never could have done it on our own, or without the brilliant help of so many internet sleuths who pitched in, none more so than @fool_Nelson and @Walkafire. And of course, who put the final piece of the puzzle together? What we found was even worse than we imagined. We knew the collusion tale was made up, but still assumed the supposed super source would at least be somewhat credible. Maybe a former Russian intelligence officer, or someone who knew Putin. Instead, what we found in Danchenko was a total nobody who knew nothing about anything, other than how to invert fairy tales. To make matters worse, he wasn't even in Russia. He was living in Washington, D.C., hustling for scraps, including at the Democrat-aligned Brookings Institute, where anti-Trump impeachment witness Fiona Hill served as his mentor. Remember Fiona Hill? She's going to hang for treason if she doesn't kill herself. It goes on, it says, and with that, on this day 5 years ago, Russiagate died. The central narrative had collapsed because the person who supposedly had all this information turned out to be a washed-up DC fanaticist for hire. And it wasn't a Pulitzer-winning journalist or a congressional committee that exposed it. It was a handful of random internet users with day jobs, unquote. All of the people who testified regarding the Russia lie back in the day, again, whether that was 2017, I think it was 2018 in particular, Adam Schiff's entire congressional hearings with Devin Nunes there and the whole thing. Devin Nunes was one of many who found out, along with Kash Patel, that they were spying on Donald Trump. That's illegal. And they were knowingly doing it based on a lie. Super illegal. All of the people then testifying on this as if it was true, knowing that it wasn't. Knowingly, again, the word knowingly is key language in the law when it comes to treason and sedition. These people are going to jail. They have to. I know we've said that about endless things, but this is the largest declass of information outside of the Q drops themselves. And we were told years ago that this was going to happen, and it's happening now. Here's Clandestine, at War Clandestine on X. They said Tulsi alleges this was a years-long coup, quote-unquote, which is another way to say regime change operation. This is why they released the JFK files first. That was to show us how the CIA conduct regime change operations so we could draw the parallels to Trump in the present. What we witnessed from 2016 through 2020 was one continuous regime change operation. Obama and his cohorts were trying to remove Trump the entire time, and they utilized the exact playbook the CIA used to conduct regime change operations around the world for decades. This is a progression to this. Trump is not just winging it. His moves are calculated. They showed us the JFK files first for a reason. They were priming us for what was to come, unquote. Yes, they were. And they tried to kill Trump in his first term. That was in Q drops also. Again, none of this is accidental. All of this is on purpose. This is an operation. There is a plan. It can't get any clearer. Now there's this one, this little fun Q post. This was a nice one. You get on the Q boards and you type in Kenyan citizenship. There's one post that pops up. This was from 7 years ago. It says, when we're done, he'll claim Kenyan citizenship as a way to escape. Q. He's talking about, of course, Barack Obama. Old Barry. I would encourage people to remember that post. I bet that comes true in the future. There was also this one, and this is kind of a nice summary when it comes to the business of the Q boards and all of it. It's also a nice reminder that you can go back into the Q boards and learn copious amounts of information to reignite your memory if you were paying attention to it at the time, or if you weren't paying attention to it at the time, the amount of information that exists regarding all of these people who were involved in all of this is all right here in one spot. This was post 1114 on April 9th of 2018. And all Q was doing was reposting another anonymous user's post on the Chan boards at the time. It's a picture of Pepe dancing with a top hat and a cane. And it says the following. Again, this wasn't Q's words, this was just another anonymous individual. But again, Q reposted it. It says, quote, "The connection is simple chlorine, not false flag. Keep in mind that every crumb is not meant to be solved before the event. Some of the drops are things for anons to dig on and make connections with. Others are markers for future reference. Future proves past," in kill brackets, which again was a common phrase used back then. It says some drops are just simply communication to the anons. What needs to be understood to appreciate what's going on here is the fact the Q is basically creating a circular flow diagram that can be referenced and cross-checked with news releases. Q can't just disclose specifics about a situation or operation without violating security protocol. Instead, they drop questions and statements that lead to answers that can be understood once the subject becomes public, like what we're experiencing now. They went on and said, "This provides the validation necessary for the public to believe the Great Awakening is legit. Disinformation and misdirection with Q is real." In other words, Q is pointing over there, but really the focus is here, and only until you publicly get the news can you go back and understand. Think Saudi Arabia drops. All of this is accomplished without giving up specific details about the operation. It's quite genius, unquote. The Q boards in that Q operation were hands down the most important thing that has ever occurred on a government scale and a information dissemination, positive psychological operation to deprogram people from the matrix itself. From the media, from everything, entertainment, all of it, all of the distraction to get them to focus on what really matters. And the amount of information in those over 4,000 drops is endless. It's too important. Again, it was a positive psychological operation, and it's working. And, by the way, it not only worked worldwide, continues to work to this day. Endless people, again, continue to criticize it. That alone should show you that those individuals, again, didn't read them in the first place, which means they don't know what they're talking about. But also that it continues to be used and the art of war continues to be used because you're getting the bad people to expose themselves on a constant basis. The individuals, again, who are consistently trying to divide people. Even General Flynn was one of those people. And yet somehow he makes his way back into the mainstream to some extent and says, well, these people need to be hung for treason and I told you so and all this other stuff. General Flynn was dividing people who were in the know on a lot of these drops and what was going on at the time while also grifting off of it at the exact same time. He can't be trusted. But every single time again that the narrative shifts or it changes or certain things come to light, endless individuals expose themselves, and Q in Q drops told us that this was going to be the case. One last Q drop for you. This is 2961 on March 4th of 2019. It says the following, quote, "Is there a benefit, think public optics, to allowing your enemy to open the front door? Warlike posture activated. Question mark. And then they said, thank you for playing. Q. What they're saying is, let your enemy expose themselves. Let the enemies of this country expose themselves. Not everybody has nefarious reasons for doing so. Some people are just incapable of thinking, and some people are just stupid. But some people are directly involved in trying to subvert or change particular people's minds and get them divided. Again, in a previous episode before I went on break here, in that 2-week break that I took, I read an excerpt and even included it in a Substack article on its own from the book The Law of War, which again includes passages from Joseph Goebbels and a lot of his writings and his memos out to soldiers. He openly said one of the worst things that can happen among a people is division. And if that division comes from individuals who claim to be on your side, it's either being done again for very nefarious reasons because those individuals are compromised, or it's being done to again expose the enemy and expose those very individuals for being divisive. I mean, look at what the mainstream media again did with Donald Trump regarding Epstein. They instantly turned that entire thing into, and he knew that they would. He used that against the media and against the people, even in the so-called alternative media on the so-called right, to expose those individuals as basically sounding exactly the same. He's dividing MAGA. He's dividing his MAGA supporters. They're all divided now, which means you can't support him and you can't support people that he supports, and everybody's divided. United we stand, divided we fall. That old saying comes back around yet again, and it's true. But we have to be united on this, because we've already been told what's going to happen, and now it's happening, and it's undeniable. It's undeniable, and it's amazing. There's one last audio clip. And by the way, John McCain was even involved in all of this, and well, he was executed. So how do you think this is going to go for other people? Here's an audio clip of Adam Schiff over the course of 3 years. This first one is him on MSNBC on March 22nd of 2017. You're going to hear him talk a little bit. And then you're going to hear the tone shift a little bit. So it goes from 2017, where he's hitting all the Sunday shows, and then 2018, he's on CNN. A year later, and you'll hear him again saying very similar things and trying to move the needle a little bit, and then 2019 as well. So here's Adam Schiff again in 2017. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
But you admit all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think...
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation. So,
there has been a report from CNN that Wednesday night that the FBI was looking into collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign in terms of spreading information about Hillary Clinton's campaign. Do you have any information to back that up?
I'm not sure that I can comment on that. I can say that I think that the investigation that the director talked about at our Monday hearing is justified. I think there is a sufficient basis for that investigation, not only to have been initiated, but for it to continue at this point. And I don't have a concern with other members characterizing the evidence as they have. And many of them have said they think there's no evidence of collusion. My disagreement with those members is I don't think that's accurate, and I feel an obligation to say so. So they can call it a fishing expedition, they can call it a witch hunt, it's all an aligned message with the White House, but nonetheless, real evidence is coming forward that just can't be ignored. So we do know a lot more. I think the claims that there was no evidence of collusion have long since fallen away. The question now is, what is the quantum of proof here? Christopher Steele may have found out, even before our own intelligence agencies, that the Russians were in fact aiming to help Donald Trump in the election. That has now been borne out by ample evidence. I think you see the most palpable evidence of a collusion in terms of violating the Logan Act.
Look, I don't think you can seriously argue that the...
Now here's Adam Schiff in 2018. Give him a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I don't think you can seriously argue that the Russians weren't trying to help Trump and hurt Clinton, as well as sow discord in the United States. The evidence is quite overwhelming on this. It was the early conclusion of the intelligence community, but that's only been furthered by all of the evidence we've seen in our investigation. And
put out a statement and a report basically saying that they found no evidence of collusion between the Trump team and the Russian government. Have Democrats found any evidence of collusion?
Yes, we have.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight. That it is very possible that the best evidence is yet to come.
And finally, here he is in 2019.
That it is very possible that the best evidence is yet to come. But look, you can see evidence in plain sight on the issue of collusion. George, there's ample evidence of collusion of the campaign, and it's...
The Senate Intel Chairman also said at this point, no evidence of collusion at this point. Do you have direct evidence of collusion with Russia?
Well, I think there is direct evidence. While there is abundant evidence of collusion, but as I've said all along, there's plenty of evidence of collusion.
And you said on this show and others that there is direct evidence of collusion. Were you wrong about that now that you've seen the summary of the Special Counsel's report?
No, because I was saying no collusion.
Well, what's your evidence? You've been saying that on TV for years.
Well, I will tell you, and I've also been saying, as you know, that the evidence is in plain sight.
He's going to hang. You can't do what he did on a constant basis. Lie through his teeth, knowingly lie about falsifying anything having to do with a president in a foreign country. He's lying about espionage in an effort again to overthrow a sitting president. He wasn't the only one. This list is endless. It's absolutely endless. And of course, there will be people in the media who reported on it who will say that they didn't know. But what they didn't know was that they were probably being surveilled by the first Trump administration. And that probably extended right into the second Trump administration. You'd bet your ass they got all their emails. Them talking back and forth about, we got to get rid of this guy, this is our plan, stick with the story, keep hammering it home, keep bringing it up. We're going to impeach him, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because again, this is what we have to do to try to get rid of this guy. There's probably even some lines in there saying things like, if we don't get rid of him, we're all going to hang for treason and sedition. They all got caught. And now it's game over. And I love it. However, with that said, I fully understand, given this declass, people right now are saying, well, why on earth aren't these people being arrested today right now? At the moment that was declassed, you instantly have to, again, arrest these people. Well, look how the media is already running cover for them. They're not even bringing it up. They're hardly even mentioning it. It's massive, which means, yes, an arrest has to be so big that it wakes up the masses. A lot of people used to say, well, that's Epstein, because even in the Q drops, it says Ghislaine Maxwell isn't a big enough name. It has to be a bigger name to arrest someone in order to, again, wake up the masses. What if that person is Barack Obama? Even endless black Americans have turned on Barack Obama. They're even making videos about it. Even they understand what's been going on here. Again, they ran away from the Democrat Party. Wasn't an accident. They saw everything that was going on too, just like a lot of us did. People doing all of the name calling and blah, blah, blah. That's not facts. That's not evidence. Name calling is just dismissive childhood behavior. But once you look at all of the facts and you look at all of the evidence, yeah, it's undeniable. And endless American citizens are walking away from Barack Obama, which means if he gets arrested, the media is going to have to report on it whether they want to or not. And endless Americans will cheer. But then you'll have to arrest everybody else who was involved too. And you've heard me bring up the word deterrence when it comes to the business of the law and holding people accountable. If you arrest Barack Obama, the number of people that will kill themselves after that who were involved in this will be endless. And nobody kills themselves by accident, certainly not when they're wrapped up in this level of illegality and trying to overthrow a president over the course of years. People will die by their own hand. But you've got to arrest one big person first. Once that happens, it's game on. And this is going to be super cool to watch. And again, you have to keep in mind, they tried to kill him. They tried to kill Donald Trump at least twice. In fact, they tried to kill him probably over a dozen times. Certainly within the first term, but it was never to rarely brought up. And the specifics of it, of course, were so classified, there's no way it was going to be brought up. But it was alluded to in Q posts on more than one occasion. And again, if people went back and read those certainly in real time, or were reading them rather in real time, they would have known that too. Including, of course, shooting Air Force One out of the sky, very famously. That was one of the posts, and that post was brought up on numerous occasions. So again, a lot of moving parts here. I fully understand, again, the skepticism. We haven't seen anybody arrested yet, so why would they start now? Are they just trying this in the court of public opinion? And is that going to be the extent of it? It can't be. There has to be full-blown accountability. But there also has to be, like I said earlier, an arrest that is big enough to wake up the masses to what was really going on. So, a lot of brainwashed people, but some of them can be snapped out of it. You just have to show them the truth, and then, of course, you have to come around with accountability. That's how that gets fixed. Okay. I'm going to move on to education stuff. I have a few headlines and a few comments regarding some of these headlines, and then I have a little bit of a deep dive that I want to do on an academy that is called Deep Waters Academy, which is an offshoot of a group that is called NAMUS, or NAMUS, N-A-U-M-U-S Incorporated. It's referred to as a university model schools. And it is both national and international. And again, it's a private school, allegedly Christian, but I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But first, again, some headlines here. First of all, this is from Zero Hedge last week. It was titled, Leaked Messages Reveal Anderson's Fury. And it says universities declared war on 70% of the country. This has to do with venture capitalist Mark Anderson, and he warned that universities engaging in discriminatory practices against students and faculty will face significant consequences, according to leaked screenshots obtained by the Washington Post. It says in the private group chat with AI scientists and Trump administration officials, Anderson stated that universities, quote, declared war on 70% of the country, and now they're going to pay the price. He criticized DEI and immigration policies, described them as two forms of discrimination that are politically lethal. This, of course, has to do with discriminating against white people. That's the entire point here. And that's exactly what universities were doing. They, of course, were also discriminating against individuals who didn't go along with the COVID lie. There was that aspect of it also. It says Anderson pointed out to the sharp rise in foreign enrollment at top universities, noting, quote, you look at the foreign enrollment rates at the top universities, which went from 2 or 3 or 4% 50 years ago or whatever, to 27 or 30% or even 50%. It says there's been a massive transformation of who gets admitted through affirmative action as we know it, DEI. The tech billionaire continued. He went on and said this goes straight to the political divide in the country. And he went on and said, if you're parents of a kid where I grew up, rural Wisconsin, and you've got a smart kid and you think you're going to get them into, a top university in this country, like you're fooling yourself, unquote. Again, laws were broken here the entire time. I'm glad that, again, they're being threatened by the White House. I'm glad that these universities, again, are saying you're violating Title IX. We're taking your money. You keep using DEI language. We're taking your money. This has to happen. But when it comes to local K-12 school districts, for example, not universities, which of course are even more in the limelight, so to speak, but when it comes to small K-12 universities, this is where people have to gather evidence, watch board meetings, look at the paperwork, put all of this in chronological order, and then ship it off to the Office of Civil Rights, certainly at the state level and then at the federal level, because these individuals have to comply. And many of them, of course, are not complying. They're just digging in like ticks and continuing to do what it is that they do, which is terrible. Here's another one. This had to do with cursive writing lessons returned to Georgia classrooms with new state standards. It says Georgia classrooms reintroduce cursive writing for students from 3rd to 5th grade, making it a part of assessed coursework. Here's a piece of audio associated with this. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
We're back at 6:45 on this Thursday morning. Thanks so much for staying with us. Cursive writing is making a comeback here in Georgia classrooms. So for some students, it'll be their very first time picking up the pen in that way.
The state just updated its English language arts standards, and starting this month, 3rd through 5th graders will be learning how to write in cursive. Morning reporter Naomi Washington is here with us with the story. And Naomi, be honest, can you still write in cursive?
Good morning. While I did learn cursive in school, I'll admit I'm pretty rusty. Georgia joins a growing number of states introducing cursive back into the classroom. I sat down with a young student eager to try it and a lifelong fan who never stopped using it. In a world dominated by text and typed notes, Susie Sullivan still prefers her pen.
I went to school back in the day, and things have changed tremendously, but I love to write, and I love reading. And the teachers really stressed writing.
Sullivan is a retired teacher who says cursive is about more than just pretty letters. It's a life skill.
When you're doing a business transaction, you have to sign paperwork. And like I said, like when I bought my house, I signed so many papers.
Now cursive is making a comeback in Georgia classrooms. Rising 5th grader Ivy Davis is already working on her penmanship.
Just focus and never let your hand off of it.
Ivy admits keeping every letter connected is tough, but she's got 2 good reasons to keep practicing.
I want to have my own signature in cursive. And 2 is because my grandparents and all my family usually sends me cards in cursive. And it's hard to understand, but when I learn cursive, it's easier to understand them.
Her mom says Ivy has done cursive worksheets before at school without being graded. But starting this year, students from 3rd through 5th grade will write letters for a letter grade. Sullivan, who taught for 25 years, has a tip for today's teachers.
Let them be kind of creative and think up what they want to write sometimes. And they would really enjoy it if you would welcome them to do that.
Students like Ivy are about to bring a fresh twist to a timeless skill. I'll have to check back in with her once she's got that signature down. But right now, I want to see how y'all did on the cursive challenge I gave you. I told you guys to write Central Georgia in cursive. Let's see it. I want to see which y'all.
Okay.
Hold them up. I want to see.
Okay, we'll start with me. Here's Megan.
Yeah.
Not too bad, but
okay.
Naomi, I will admit, I kind of cheated a little bit and had to pull up the alphabet online.
Okay,
just to,
both
make
of
sure
us
I was
definitely
doing.
did.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, so that was Connor's.
Alrighty,
Okay.
here is mine. As you can see, I forgot how to spell this morning. So it
Central
definitely says
Georgia.
Central Georgia. But I think my penmanship is still kind of pretty, no?
Yeah,
It's still pretty.
it's good. It's good. I like it. Well, good job, guys. Like I said, we'll check back in.
Even the news anchor adults couldn't spell. Even they couldn't do it. Even they couldn't spell. Their penmanship isn't terrible, but you could see they were nervous as hell. They're just like, oh God, we have to show everybody how dumb we are when it comes to spelling in cursive. It's too embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I'm not saying that I couldn't use a refresher course. I certainly could, but I can sign my name in cursive. I got it. I can read cursive. These students today, they can't, and neither can the teachers, and that's the biggest problem. The number of teachers that are going to have to get fired and actually relearn how to write cursive and actually teach cursive in the state of Georgia is going to be endless. It's amazing. The simple fact that this fell out of favor or stopped being a thing is astounding, but it is intentional, and that was part of the problem. It was part of the dumbing down of our society, and that was the entire purpose. And it's disgusting. Now, speaking of disgusting, 2 arrests here of 2 Preble County, Ohio individuals regarding assaulting minors in a sexual nature. The first is a township trustee. It says charged with recording juvenile while in bathroom. This was back on Sunday, July 13th. It said Preble County investigators have filed formal charges against an Eaton man related to a sex crimes investigation. Detectives interviewed Joseph Wade Guthrie, 36, of Eaton on Sunday, July 13th, 2025, related to accusations that he was covertly recording a juvenile while the juvenile was in a bathroom. This occurred in a residence and not in a public place. Guthrie's been formally charged in Eaton Municipal Court with the following: illegal use of a minor or impaired person in nudity-oriented material or performance, second-degree felonies, 2 counts, tampering with evidence, a third-degree felony, illegal use of a minor or impaired person in nudity-oriented material or performance, a fifth-degree felony, voyeurism, a fifth-degree felony, and grooming, a first-degree misdemeanor. It says bond was set in court and Guthrie has posted bond, currently serving as a trustee with Gasper Township. Busted. And then there's this. Same county, Preble County Jail, the former Eaton High School, Ohio band teacher, a Paul Bingle, was arrested on the 19th for unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. Yes, but I'm sure Jason Mers in the town where I live did absolutely nothing. This happens all of the time, ladies and gentlemen. This, hands down, is the epidemic in American schools. Again, when it comes to Title IXs, yes, boys playing girls' sports and all of the brainwashed people who seem to enjoy that for some ungodly reason, that is a problem. But pedophilia is the largest problem. It's the most reported, it's the most arrested, it's the most discussed. But again, in the mainstream media, it's the occasional boy playing a girl's sport that seems to be the squeaky wheel which gets the grease. Unfortunately, it really is pedophilia. That's the biggest problem. Okay, last but not least here, Deep Waters Academy. I was alerted to this by a listener of the show who has been a guest on the show before, and they applied to this school within their own retirement, after their retirement, in an effort again to just give back and continue to teach and use their skills a couple of days a week as much as humanly possible. As I said earlier, this Deep Waters Academy exists, I believe, certainly in numerous areas, but the larger conglomerate, this NAMUS Incorporated, University Model Schools, this exists in approximately, let me get you the numbers here, they have 90 schools across 24 states across 4 countries, and 57% of them are accredited. Now here's the history of this particular program. They have training, of course, and here's, again, the history associated with it. In 1992, a group of Christian parents felt caught between 2 of their deepest passions. On one hand, they yearned to meet the spiritual needs of their sons and daughters, and on the other, they aspired to provide for their children's academic development. The older their children grew, the more dismayed these parents became because the requirements of one passion inherently worked against the practical outworking of the other. To train their children spiritually, the parents needed consistent and meaningful time with them. To provide for their children academically, they needed a good school. The children's attendance in school, however, drastically reduced their family time together, while it dramatically increased the students' exposure to negative, competing influences. These influences stood in direct conflict with their values the parents were so passionate to impart. It says the parents knew that there must be a way to bring the twin passions together as partners instead of adversaries, as a way that would blend into 2 balanced systems, the best attributes of home and the best attributes of the traditional Christian classroom. The result of their prayers and efforts is what they know today as the University Model, or UM, a new paradigm in Christian K-12 education and discipleship. The first school, Grace Preparatory Academy in Arlington, Texas, where I was born, opened in 1993. Almost immediately, parents saw positive results in student academic achievement and character development. Both were the direct result of the model's systematic and mandatory partnership with parents. It says word of mouth about the model's logic and effectiveness spread rapidly. By 2002, 11 more schools had opened under the tutelage of Grace Preparatory Academy. Remarkably, these were in various parts of the country: Georgia, California, Ohio, and elsewhere. The same year, the GPA Board organized the National Association of University Model Schools, or NAMUS, Inc., to provide continuing support for those existing schools and to promote the development of new university model schools. In 2005, NAMUS, Inc. was formally and separately established to serve as the permanent centerpiece of the university model Christian discipleship movement. By 2013, Naumus Inc. had grown to 71 schools in 19 states, including one in mainland China. By 2016, the number of schools expanded beyond 80. In 2017, the Naumus Incorporated School Association University Model Schools International was established, dedicated to the mission of building dynamic university model school communities worldwide. Today, the ongoing growth of the university model movement is best summarized with two phrases that capture the essence of innumerable testimonies and experiences shared all over the United States. This remarkable growth has occurred because of word of mouth and the call of God. Okay. Sounds homely, sounds nice, sounds authentic, and all of that stuff, certainly at face value. However, a guest of the show and a listener of the show, like I said, reached out to one of their schools that is affiliated with this Naumus Inc. University school model, which is called Deep Waters Academy. Now, this too is based out of Texas, and here is the job description for working at Deep Waters Academy. It says the following, and they sent this to me. It says, a teacher at Deep Waters Academy has faith in Jesus Christ exemplified through daily living, prayer, demonstration of the fruits of the Spirit, and is committed to a local church. See, this is one of the problems right out of the gate with some of these schools that are Christian, is they believe that everybody who works within the building or attends the school also has to be affiliated with the church. That can be problematic. There is a difference between being affiliated with a church and having a relationship with Jesus Christ. I don't attend church and probably never will ever again. I've been to too many. I've seen what they do. Me personally, I'm not a fan. But when it comes to having a relationship with Jesus Christ and communicating with Him, I can tell you I most certainly do. That's different. I don't have to listen to someone else's interpretation of something and then, of course, have a plate passed my way. But anyway, it goes on. It says, a love of children and a passion for classical education and the university model school. It says, effective teaching techniques to create an engaging learning environment, the ability to integrate a biblical worldview throughout the curriculum, a willingness to partner with parents in the education of children, a love of what is good, true, and beautiful. Again, sounds nice. It says a teacher at Deep Waters Academy is self-motivated and confident, interacts easily with others, an effective communicator, a lifelong learner, a creative thinker and problem solver, a servant leader, virtuous and upright, self-reflective, and able to ask for help. Sounds nice. But as we know in the education business, and this is a business, even at this level, what they say can easily be contradicted with what they do. And you can test these people to see if they actually stick with what they say. And 9 times out of 10, they do not stick with what they say. It says weekly tasks. Monday and Wednesday, classes are from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Teacher time commitment is 8:15 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. Plan and implement hands-on and engaging lessons following the curriculums. Move at an effective pace while teaching to maximize classroom time. Utilize effective classroom management techniques and strategies to build rapport with students as well as increase student engagement and retention of the materials. Assess students' understanding and knowledge of subject matter on a regular basis through a variety of formal and informal assessment strategies. Keep grades recorded in accurate data. Input grades into ClassReach at least 2 to 4 weeks, every 2 to 4 weeks. It says communicate effectively with students and parents about home learning assignments, communicate effectively with parents about student progress and behavior. Again, it sounds fine. Additional requirements and skills. It says all teachers must have a bachelor's degree or higher, required previous experience teaching. Teaching certification is not required but is helpful. All teachers must have a basic understanding of computers and an inability to use ClassReach software. email, and shared drive for lesson planning and communication with parents. DWA, Deepwater's Academy, provides training on class reach. It says a Deepwater's Academy teacher receives effective training and support in a positive work environment, a unique teaching experience partnering with parents, a comparable hourly compensation. And then their website, of course, is deepwatersacademy.org. Now, here was this individual's experience with this, and this was a series of text messages that they sent me and information as well regarding this. And then I asked them, of course, can I explain this on the show? And they said yes. And this is where it gets real hinky. Keeping in mind that they were excited about working here, they thought, wow, this almost seems too good to be true. They want to offer me more courses. They want me to teach more classes. This sounds great. What's not to like? Wholesome environment. Good kids, don't want to be in the public school system. Everything seems great. And then they said this. They sent me the form that they apparently received on the last day of their training before their actual school year starts here or is set to start. And they said the following, quote, I had high hopes for this place, but after the second day of training, I will not be working there. They had us collect paperwork at the end of the day as we were walking out the door. Check out this one. They said, when I asked the head of the upper school about it, she said it was a simple criminal background check. After researching this when I got home, it's much worse. If a person signs that form, they can check your finances, your medical history, your social media posts, everything. I think they've already done a criminal background check on us anyway. Why else would they have given us our materials and keys to the building if they hadn't? Too many red flags. And then I said, wow, good research on your part. Did you tell the higher-ups about this overreach? They said, I'm composing an email right now. They said Grok laid this out and laid out the specific steps, again, regarding the information and the word usage, of course, that is in this particular form. And I want to read this form to you because there's language in here that, again, is not good. It says, again, Project My Ministry is the application data collection. It says, applicant data collection. I can read. Today's date, of course, last name, first name, all that stuff. Other names used, if you use other names, I don't know why they would say that. Home address, email address, all that other stuff. And then at the bottom it says, acknowledgement and authorization. By signing below, I hereby authorize the obtaining of consumer reports and or investigative consumer reports by Deepwater's Academy at any time after receipt of this authorization and throughout the course of participating as a volunteer for DWA. Now, again, this is where artificial intelligence and these advanced web searches can be very beneficial because you can type in the names of these particular forms and the word usage that is used within these forms, and you can actually go down some serious rabbit holes. That's exactly what they did with Grok's AI on X. And they plugged all this information in, and then Grok spit this back out. They said, quote, your research was spot on. Authorization forms for consumer or investigative consumer reports can be overly broad, potentially allowing access to financial, credit, or personal details beyond a standard criminal background check, which is all Texas private schools typically need, per Texas Education Code subsection 22.083. The school's misrepresentation suggests either poor communication or intentional overreach, justifying your decision to walk away, unquote. Again, that was the AI's explanation of their rationalization as to, their explanation rather, as to why they were interested in potentially walking away, but also having them look at the actual form. They went on here, they said they know what they are doing regarding Deepwater's Academy. They waited until the end of the second day as everyone was walking out the door to have everyone collect the paperwork and bring back tomorrow. I don't think they wanted anybody asking any questions about it in front of the group. I wondered why they were having teacher training 3 weeks before the start of school. I believe they know some people are going to research this and walk away. And I went, yep, you have exquisite intuition and great analysis. They said, you've trained your listeners well. Well, I appreciate that. They said they went on here, and this is interesting too. They said they did a group activity yesterday, dividing us into groups. Who was born in Texas? Who was born in another state? Who was born in another country? Then they had everyone list the city and state they were born in. They also divided everyone in groups. Who had a Bible in their house growing up? Who didn't? Who attended church regularly as a child? Who didn't? Who read scriptures and prayed with family daily? Who didn't? The point of this, they said, was to show us that our students come from different backgrounds too. That may be true, however, after seeing these forms, I believe they were profiling us too. They claim to be low tech. Students are not to have laptops or use their cell phones at school. However, teachers will be required to carry a radio at all times, communicate through WhatsApp, and use Google Workspace. See, that's no good. That's a red flag. And we know that almost every school uses Google Workspace. I mean, a lot of them do, or they use programs very similar, but that's a big red flag. They said they have active shooter drills and have all the safety requirements that the public schools post on their walls. The director stated at one point, quote, "It's our job to tell our students the truth. There are still people out there who believe the earth is flat," unquote. See, that's a red flag too. And this is part of the problem. You talk about people who don't read the Bible. You talk about individuals who are not critical thinkers and don't investigate. That person right there is a perfect example of a person who doesn't, and this is the person in charge of the school. They went on, the listener of the show and former guest on the show, and they said, "I don't care what people believe on these topics. I think people have the right to believe whatever they want. But the way she said it came across to me as people who think that they are stupid. During all this, I was studying the faces in the room, looking for anyone who might be awake. I think they are all dead asleep. Just about everyone had on an Apple Watch too," unquote. Yeah, it's hinky to say the least. It feels cultish to me. And therein lies the problem. Because again, it's not part of, it is the problem. The public school system is a cult. Private school systems are cults too. Charter school systems, they're also cults. And of course, other conglomerates like this that even have international ties who claim again, like I said in their mission statements, and these are the kinds of teachers and people that we're interested in. They're really not. They really aren't. They're running on belief systems and then telling everybody that you have to believe what they believe and you have to implement what they implement. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. That's a cult. Again, if you get on their website, you can see the people associated with this school who run this particular school. Two of them are related. It looks like a mother and a daughter are part of this also. But the head of the school is this Amelia Charia. And if this was the woman giving that presentation and saying there's still people out there who think the earth is flat, then she's never read the Bible. She immediately gives herself away. It's in the book of Genesis. I mean, for the love of God, it's right there. It's right there. Among 200 other spots within the Bible, but they just, skip over that part. And then there's the associate head of school, which is this Kristen Fontana. And then the head of family ministry, which is a Sarah Fontana. It's pretty evident that this Sarah Fontana, she's a little wild-eyed, and looks like she was a former school teacher also. And then they show both, Kristen and Peter Fontana and her family and their kids, and then Amelia and Vinny Charia and their family. And they're the ones, again, that apparently run all of this. It's highly suspicious because, again, if you pulled them aside and you explained Bible verses to them that prove that Earth is not a spinning ball, and then you'd show them actual scientific proof that, in fact, it isn't, Do you think that these are the kinds of people that would listen to reason and critically think about it, even though it says they want critical thinking teachers in their application process? Again, if you brought this to their attention, or anything that is factual to their attention that contradicts their belief system, they would scream like banshees from hell. Immediately. That's not Christ-like. That's not following Jesus. That's not a Christ-centered community. That's not what that is. That's them believing in devilish things and not critically thinking on their own as an individual. So it doesn't matter the size of the school, ladies and gentlemen. Some of these smaller schools are equally as bad as the largest public school districts in the nation. A building is only as effective as the people who manage it appropriately. And making insulting statements like that, there's still people out there who think that the earth is flat. Well, that's the way that it always was. Before a guy came along and lied to everybody and said it's a spinning ball. And then got everybody again, not everybody, but a great deal of people to believe it, including the mainstream media, which clearly these individuals watch, and it brainwashes them. But God bless this woman and the listener of this show who, again, applied to that school and had the knowledge and the wherewithal and the intuition to walk away. Because think of the number of people who aren't walking away. They don't know about the wireless body area network, hence all the Apple Watches. They don't know about a lot of things. They just think that they're doing a good deed of some kind. But I think it also says something in the Bible about your good deeds are like dirty rags to Jesus. He doesn't care about good deeds. He just cares about the truth. Now, speaking of cultish behavior, get a load of this, and right on time, and I'm going to end with this one. This was from the New York Post on July 17th, and it was titled, Uvalde School Shooting Records Ordered to be Released After District Attorney Pushed for Files to be Withheld. It said a Texas State Appeals Court judge on Wednesday ordered Uvalde County and its school district to release records and documents related to the 2022 Robb Elementary School shooting. There was no school shooting. Affirming a previous trial court order. A coalition of 18 news organizations, including the Texas Tribune, sued the city of Uvalde, Uvalde County, and Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District in 2022 for access to body camera footage, 9/11 call records, and communications made during the school shooting. Ah, yes, the body cam footage that we never saw. The body cam footage inside the classroom where the door was never opened, where there were no bodies and no one existed. Again, take the Deep Waters Academy individuals who run that joint. They too, again, run shooter drills, as they said in their description during their initiation, so to speak, within that school in the training session that they had. That means that if you were to approach those people and say, do you know that most school shootings do not happen and are actually fake and designed again to traumatize and ritually traumatize individuals and then get them to change their policies so they think for the better, when in fact it isn't? It's actually not done to really improve anything. It's just done to ritualistically traumatize people. You would explain that to them again, they would run away from you. They would scream and shout. They wouldn't want to look at the evidence. They wouldn't want to critically think about anything. And then back to their cultish behavior they go. It says law enforcement's responses to Texas' deadliest school shooting, in which 19 students and 2 teachers were killed, give me a break, has been scrutinized extensively for failures in communication that delayed response time while the shooter was still in 2 classrooms with children. No, they weren't. Again, I don't know if anything is going to come from any of this, but here's what I do know. It's timing, and the timing is not accidental. It's all ritualistic trauma. Let's get Uvalde school shooting and that whole story and that narrative back in the zeitgeist of the minds of people right before school begins here in the next few weeks across the nation. Because schools, again, are going to kick into high gear here within the next 14, 20 some odd days. So summer's running out, which means, again, all of these stories are going to be on a loop. Wouldn't be surprised if you hear again about the Nashville school shooting one more time. Sandy Hook makes its way back, something along those lines. And then as soon as the school system kicks into high gear, well, the bad guys who exist in our nation, what have they been doing all summer? Probably scheming up which school they're going to stage a shooting in yet again. That will be fake. It'll be all over the news, and then we'll be right back to where we were all over again. But at least I'll be here to cover that fake school shooting. And who knows, maybe it'll actually be real. Maybe they'll take illegal aliens, they'll have them run right through a building with real guns and shoot up the place really this time. Or maybe they won't. And it'll just be fake like they typically always are. Where no questions get asked, but policy gets changed, and everybody again is ritualistically traumatized yet again. Again, good move for getting away from Deepwater's Academy. That does not seem like a safe place to be on a variety of levels. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening as always. Big one, long one here, but with that said, I'll catch you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.